start out with some questions about his family history. Okay, from what country or countries did your family emigrate, and your ancestors emigrate?
Well, my mother and, well, I want to correct that. My father came from Alsace-Lorraine in Europe, and my mother was born in Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay. And when was this, and where did they settle?
Well, my father came over to this country at the invitation of Dr. Mayo from Rochester, Minnesota. And he was brought over to this country. He was 16 years old. So he came from Alsace-Lorraine to Rochester, Minnesota, and he became a grower for Dr. Charles Mayo.
At
And
Maywood.
in, beg pardon?
At Maywood.
Yeah, at Maywood in Rochester, Minnesota. And my mother and her family moved from Baltimore, Maryland to Chicago, Illinois.
All right. What are your parents' names?
Well, my father's name was Bruno Neckville, and my mother's name was Antoinette Neckville.
Okay. When and where were they born?
Well, as I mentioned, my dad was born in Alsace-Lorraine, and my mother in Baltimore, Maryland. Now, the dates, I can't tell you right now. My memory's not quite that good.
Okay. Yeah. What was your mother's maiden name?
Her name was Mrazek.
Okay. What do you remember most about your mother and father from your childhood?
Well, I think that the thing that stands out in my mind more than anything else, that both of them were very industrious. And my dad worked very hard, and my mother worked along with him in the florist business. So those are the things I think that really stand out in my mind the most.
Oh, well, that's interesting. What did your parents work do, or what was your parents' work?
Well, as I just mentioned, my father was a nursery man and a florist, and my mother, before she was married, had an administrative job with Sears Roebuck and Company in Chicago. You're not supposed to interrupt there. Tell her to shut.
This is my grandpa's wife, Audie Nexel.
Hi.
She's sort of our script prompter. What is your birth date?
My birthday is July 24th, 1919.
Where were you born?
I was born in Evanston, Illinois, a place called the St. Francis Hospital.
Was there anything unusual about the circumstances of your birth?
Not to my knowledge, no.
What is your full name and how was it chosen?
Well, Edward Barton Neckville is my legal name. And I don't know why it was chosen. My mother and father must have liked the name Edward as maybe a relative to the King of England at the time, or some particular reason of that nature.
All right, and does it have any special meaning?
I don't believe it has.
Okay. What was other language besides English spoken in your home?
Well, there was some Germans speaking when I was very young, but I never learned how to speak it. And my mother and father kind of graduated towards English as I got older.
Okay. And what were one or two of the hardest times in your family life?
Well, I think the hardest part of my family was during 1929 to 33, which was the years of the Great Depression, and everybody in that age had a hard time making a living and to support a family. So I would say the depression of that period was the most grueling time that we had.
Okay. What were one or two of the best times like?
Beg pardon?
What were one or two of the best things?
During that period?
Well, during any period in your childhood.
Well, that's kind of hard, being that I'm getting up in age, my memory isn't that good, but I think looking forward to holidays and the fact that I had a dog that I used to like and played with a lot, and that kind of reminds me a lot of my childhood and friends that I had at that time.
Okay. What is your first memory as far back as you can go?
Well, the first thing that stays in my memory is this dog that I just mentioned. I used to always like animals, and I remember I used to take little trips around the neighborhood with this dog, and a couple of occasions got lost, but always had the dog with me, and had a great love for him, and I think that was one of the first things I can recall.
Okay. Where did you live, and what do you most remember about your home?
Well, as I recall, my first home that I recall was in Glencoe, Illinois, and we lived in this town up on the second floor over a tailor shop, as I remember, and I used to get kind of a kick out of going down to the tailor shop and visiting with him, and there was some hardware stores and other type of stores, and I seemed to be kind of interested in these various businesses, even as a small boy.
Hmm. Did you have any nicknames?
No nicknames.
Okay. Did you have any pets?
Not now, but I always had dogs and rabbits and things like that when I was a child.
Okay. What did you do for fun then?
When I was a young boy like that?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of hard to remember, but other than various games, played games, and I didn't have too many children to play with under those circumstances. So, but when I got older, I participated. Maybe you're going to ask me about that as I got older, but as a young boy, I didn't do much with other people under those circumstances.
Yeah, then could you describe one of your favorite games?
Well, I used to play a lot of baseball, football, and ice hockey. But I didn't do that until I was about 9 or 10 years old, and as I grew older.
Okay. What do you remember most about the schools you attended?
Well, I went to kindergarten, as I recall, in Glencoe, Illinois, and then we moved to Highland Park, Illinois, and I started first grade there, and I think the thing that impressed me more than anything was meeting new friends and being exposed to more people, obviously when I started school, as compared to my previous existence, as I just described.
How did you get there?
To school?
Yeah.
Well, for the first 8 years, I rode a bicycle to school, and I had about 3 miles to go to school, and I rode the bike in the summer, and of course in the winter time I'd have to walk.
Then, how many years of school have you completed?
You mean completely?
Yes.
Well, I'd say completely about. I refer to it as grammar school. Maybe you refer to it now as grade school, high school, and then I had about 3 years credit in the college.
Okay. What did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a chemist.
Okay. And what did your parents want you to be?
Well, they concurred with my thinking. They didn't have any definite goals or made any specific suggestions. So I more or less followed my own planning.
Okay. What household chores and jobs would you have to do?
Well, when we were in the greenhouse business in Highland Park, Illinois, I helped my mother and dad work in the greenhouse. I picked up pots and transplanted flowers from flats to the benches and so forth. And as time went on, I also helped wait on customers when they'd come in and sell tulips and pansies and various type of flowers of that nature. But whatever miscellaneous duties, such as preparing the benches in the greenhouse for the growing of chrysanthemums and other particular plants that we had, Easter lilies and things of that nature.
Okay. Did you play any sports in school?
I played football and a little baseball.
Okay. Were you involved in any music or drama activities?
I participated in drama in grammar school, but not in high school.
Okay. Were you a member of any clubs associated with school?
No.
Okay. Did you receive any awards or scholarships?
No, I did not.
Okay. At what point did you move away from home?
I moved away from home when when I entered the armed forces. So I was about 22 years old, I believe, at the time. And I left home at that time. I went in the armed forces.
Okay, and where was that? Where did you go to?
Well, I ended up in Alaska, ended up throughout the United States, and in the Guadalcanal, Philippine Islands, and back to the United States again.
Okay. Well, now we'll find out about some of Grandpa's marriages and his years of raising children. Okay.
I'm willing to answer that.
How'd you meet the first person you married?
I met her on a fishing trip with a friend of mine from Chicago over in Spooner, Wisconsin.
Okay. And how old were you when you met?
I believe I was about 20, 21 years old.
Okay, and then how'd you meet your second wife?
I knew my second wife for a period of 30 years and had a lot of mutual acquaintances and friends and managed to get together on that plane.
Okay. And then also, how old were you when you met?
Second wife was?
Yeah.
I was about, I would say about 56.
No, we met when we were real young.
Oh yeah, I met her 30 years ago, as I mentioned, but when we began to go out together, I think I was around 56 years old.
Okay, then. When and where was your first wedding?
1946 at the Lake Tacomas Lutheran Church in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I believe that was about April the 15th of 1946.
And then, what about your second marriage?
Second marriage was it was in November of about 1979 at the Lutheran Church, Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd in Minneapolis.
Okay, and what were your strongest memories from your weddings?
Well, the first wedding, I think the strongest memory was a very pleasant trip to Florida. And our second trip with my second wife was a trip to Hawaii, and we had a great time.
Okay. Tell a favorite story or two about your married life.
The second one or the first one?
How about both?
Second one. How about the second one?
Okay, sure.
Repeat the question. You want give me that again.
Okay. Tell a favorite story or two about your early married
All
life.
right, I'll tell you, one thing that I thought was amusing and was fun is my second wife, who was helping me here, and I went to Europe. And the highlight of that trip was a tremendous amount of fun at the Oktoberfest in Munich. And the singing and the laughing and the jokes and the people were fantastic, and I'll never forget that. And we laughed and had a great time. And then and to back that up, we went to Innsbruck in Austria, where we continued there by meeting so many nice people and good food, and the trip in itself was full of humor and laughs and a very, very pleasant time, and I'll remember it as long as I live.
Okay. And here's some about your child raising. What are your favorite recollections of your family life when your children were young?
Well, I would say that the thing that I got the most pleasure out of was taking my children on various types of excursions. Like your mother, I took to Southdale and we bought presents for toys for tots, and she got a great big kick out of it, and so did I. My son, I took when I was with me out to the farm to see the farm animals, and my other daughter went with me to on trips, because at that time my job was traveling a lot, and I'd take the kids with me whenever it would all be possible. My one daughter took her down to Illinois and had dinner at these fancy places, and took her to the Capitol down there and so forth. So I'd say that to answer your question was participating in trips with my kids to the best that I could do under those particular circumstances.
Okay. And what parts of being a parent have been most difficult or trying for you?
I must say that I have had very good luck with all my children, and I can't say that we had any serious problems with any of them. I mean, they were all, I thought, well disciplined, and proud of them and all of their work. And I was extremely happy with the way they produced such good grades in school. All of my children were serious about their education, and all of them did an excellent job. And of course, I was very proud of that. So was their mother.
That's good. And what parts were easiest and most rewarding for you?
Parts of bringing them up, you mean, or?
Yeah.
Well, the thing that I'm very happy was we had no drug problems. We didn't have any alcohol problems, and all of the children have done well and have ended up with good, respectable jobs and position in society. So I was proud of that.
Okay. Now here's some experiences or questions about some experiences of yours. What was your proudest moment?
Proudest moment?
Yes.
I think the proudest moment that I had was not when 3 out of my 4 children graduated from college. I was very proud about that. And my one daughter who didn't graduate decided to get married, but if she had stayed with it, she most likely would have graduated too, because she was doing a good job also. So I think that would be, I would say, the proudest thing for me.
Okay. And what was the most embarrassing moment?
That is kind of hard for me to answer. I don't know of any extremely embarrassing things that happened to me. I've had a lot of things happen that were funny, but they weren't embarrassing. I don't think there was anything, to my knowledge, that really embarrassed me. I can't really say that there was anything.
Okay, then what was the funniest thing that's ever happened to you?
Well, I think one of the funniest things that happened to me was when I was cooking a turkey one day at a party, and I was told not to fill the turkey with with stuffing, but I proceeded to do it anyhow because I like stuffing and turkey. And I proceeded to cook it, and we went out to cut the turkey, and the time that I went to cut it, the turkey exploded. And I blew parts of the turkey all over the roof of the house. It was in a barbecue outside, and the turkey ended up on the roof. And all the people who were there, this happened 15 years ago, and every time I see them to this day, they still remind me about that turkey that exploded on the spit. So I think that was one of the funniest things. I laughed for hours afterwards.
I can imagine. And what was your most saddest or painful time?
Well, I think the thing that was painful for me was my father was killed by a hit-and-run driver, and I never did forget that. And that was very traumatic and very much of a problem for me and, of course, my mother. And then later, my mother died, and so I would say those two experiences were about the saddest for me.
Okay. Where have you lived as an adult?
Where have I lived
Yes.
as an adult?
Yeah.
Well, I lived as an adult. I lived in Highland Park, Illinois, until I went into service. Then when I got out of service, about 4 years later, I remained there for one more year. Then I was transferred to Minnesota, in Minneapolis, and I have lived in Minnesota here since 1946.
Okay. And where have you most enjoyed living and why?
Well, I've enjoyed living in Minneapolis. I have a lot of friends here now, and I like the country, and I like the neighborhood, and I would say that the living here has been very, very pleasant. I've enjoyed it.
Okay, and what was the biggest trip you've ever taken as an adult?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the biggest trip that I've taken was the trip to Europe, which included touch of Ireland, Austria, down into Italy, Germany, and that was the, I'd say, the furthest I've gone. In addition to going to, as an adult, civilian adult, to Hawaii on about 2 or 3 occasions. So I enjoyed that.
Okay. With whom?
With my present wife here. She and I have done this together.
Okay. Oh.
You're getting more out of that now, yeah.
Okay. Well, of course you served in the military. You mentioned that earlier. And when and where?
Well, I was in Alaska for a year and a half with Tank Automotive Center, and then I was in New Guinea, and for a while, and in Wewak in New Guinea, and then to Guadalcanal, and then from Guadalcanal to the Philippine Islands, and then I was there until they were supposed to invade Japan, and an atomic bomb was dropped, so I did not go to Japan, so I just had to wait to come back to the United States from there.
Okay, and did you ever actually go into combat?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you receive any higher education beyond high school?
Well, I went to being the Depression was on when I was going to school. I had to go to night school more than night, so I spent the equivalent of about 3 years of extra activities at night and working in a laboratory.
Okay, where and what was your major course of study?
I specialized in mathematics and chemistry was the bottom line there. I had some other courses too, but basically those were the two that I was pursuing.
Okay. To what organizations have you belonged? And
Well, you mean right now?
yeah, like
Well, I belong to the Minneapolis Shrine, Masonic Order, the VFW, the American Legion. And I used to be a member of the Kiwanis, Downtown Minneapolis Kiwanis Club, and also the Downtown Council of Minneapolis one time. I don't belong there anymore.
okay. Have you ever been hospitalized, and What for?
Well, I have been hospitalized, yes. I've been hospitalized for blood clots, hospitalized for kidney stones, and it sounds like a report from Mayo here, but and I've been hospitalized for a heart attack and also for open heart surgery.
Oh, okay. What was your first full-time job?
First full-time job, while I was going to school, I worked in a pure oil gasoline station for about 6 months. And from there, and then I went from there into becoming a test car driver for a pure oil company in a research and development laboratory.
Okay, and how much did you earn and what responsibilities did you have?
Well, I don't recall exactly how much I made in the service station, but I was more or less a part-time employee there. But then I went to work in this laboratory, which was close by. And I think my starting salary at that time as a test car driver was about $75 a month.
Okay. What kinds of work have you done as a volunteer?
I was very active with the Minneapolis Society of the Blind, and we would take these sightless people to bowling alleys, and I would help them bowl for a number of years, about 3 or 4 years, every Saturday morning, and that was very interesting and a life-giving experience. So that would be the most recent thing that I've done. I've also worked with, involved with people with selling magazines and things of that nature, but from a civic type of thing, I would say that the downtown council was my main event.
Okay. What have been your favorite hobbies or pastimes?
My favorite hobby up to last year, and maybe still is, but not quite as active, is golfing. I like to golf. I like to fish. So I would say fishing and golfing are my two favorite pleasurable hobbies.
Okay.
Well, my wife points out the fact that I played a lot of cribbage in my life, and I like to play cribbage, yes. But that's about
Okay.
it.
Have you ever met anyone famous?
Yes, I did. I'm glad you asked. Would you say a heart-to-heart, 25-minute conversation with President George Bush? I met him and talked to him, and he and I had quite an interesting experience here in Minneapolis. And I also had the pleasure of meeting Richard Nixon at one time. I also visited with President Lyndon Johnson in Chicago. I also had 2 occasions to meet Johnny Carson, one in Pennsylvania, one in Las Vegas. Governor Stassen and I were good, had quite a conversation from Minneapolis to Baraboo, Wisconsin at one time. And there's a few others. In fact, it's kind of a joke in our family that I don't want to be a name dropper, but I have met a lot of prominent people in my lifetime, which I find relatively extraordinary.
What major inventions have been developed in your lifetime?
Well, the things that stand out in my mind more than anything else is I was born before we had radios. And I can recall as a boy the first radios that were in existence. And so I consider that a major invention. And then, of course, the next thing that I'm quite amazed about is television. So I was in my generation, I've seen TV from a screen about 4 inches to the sizes they have in 1990. So I'd say radio and television and the advancement of aeronautical products and also the communication era have fascinated me in my 71 and a half plus years.
Okay. As you look back, do you have any favorite years? And what has made them so special?
I would think that when I went into my own business in 1957, And up until the time I retired, I believe I got more out of life then than I ever have previous, because everything I did for my family and myself, and the successes that I had were mind-boggling to me, considering the competition and all the other economic factors that existed. So I would say that being in my own business and made a living and enjoyed all phases of it.
Okay. What is one time in your life you'd like to live over?
Well, I think that to be a dreamer any time from the time I was 35 years old until I was 55 years old, I'd like to live over, because they were the most productive years that I had, and I think I had more. I made more acquaintances of people,
Hello?
and was active in the industrial part
Yeah. Oh, hi,
of
Joey.
society.
How are you?
Hey,
Oh, well.
what are some of the best books you have
You ready for the next?
ever read?
Well, I do a lot of reading, but I kind of like mystery stories and espionage stories and things of that nature. But I'd say one of the better ones I read recently would be Little Caesar by MacArthur, written by Manchester. That was a good book. And I've read all the Tom Clancy books and Ludum, and I like Sidney Shelton books, like Tomorrow, If Tomorrow Comes. I like that book. I thought that was good. But I like the action type of books of that
Okay.
kind.
What is one of your favorite sayings?
One of my favorite sayings, and I'm sure they'll remember me by this, is I always say, quote, "Don't assume anything," end quote.
Okay. What do you most value in a friend?
I obviously admire loyalty, good sense of humor, and someone who you can have confidence in.
Okay. What issues or causes have you felt strongly about?
I feel strongly about the deficit in the United States right now. It concerns me. I'm very much interested in the Far Eastern situation as to what the end result is going to be there. And I would say those two at the present time I would take top priority.
Okay. What values or religious beliefs do you hold?
What was that? Would you mind repeating that again? What was that again?
What values or religious beliefs do you hold dear?
Well, like I say, I'm a member of the Lutheran Church, and I believe in all of the policy and doctrine that they have, and I feel that I try to do unto others as I'd like others to do unto me. So I don't, other than the conventional approach to that subject, I think that to my knowledge, pretty much covers it.
Okay. In times of trouble, who or what has helped pull you through?
Well, I would say that faith in God has helped me, I'm sure, because I've been lucky in my health problems. A good, understanding wife who I have, and she is very encouraging and very optimistic, and helps me in every possible way she can possibly do that. So I think that might answer your question.
Okay, and now our last question. What is your best advice for your grandchildren?
My best advice for my grandchildren is for them to continue to do the best they can in school, stay away from from problems such as drugs and alcohol, and by all means appreciate how much education will do for you and how it'll pay off in the future. Because without an education in this day and age, I'm afraid that people without the proper information and education are gonna be in very bad shape. So I think I pretty much summed it up in that statement.
Okay, well, we'll try to hold that. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Good luck to you.